Hello, everyone, and welcome to another Chivalry 2 dev stream. We're super excited to have you all here. Thanks for turning up in the chat. We've been chatting with you as our timer has ticked down, and we appreciate you being here with us today. So we have a few guests with us today. The first, he's a regular now. We have Mr. Moon Moon himself. He's joining us today, as usual.
So, you know what? I'm a little disappointed you introed me because I was going to mess with you and say, "Hi, I'm Jen," and then
Oh,
just
shoot.
acknowledge it. Next time,
Next
we'll do
time. We
that.
need to arrange our bits next time. We also have today with us a special TBS developer guest. We have Ivan Chan, who is joining us for the first time. Ivan is as I mentioned, a character artist on Chivalry 2, and we're super excited to have Ivan with us today. Welcome.
Thanks. Hey, how's it going?
To start off, before we get into the actual content of today's stream, I do want to point out, just in case you guys haven't noticed, we did remove Coxwell from the map rotation this morning. This was due to quite a bit of community feedback about defense being a little bit more difficult or attacking being a little bit more difficult depending on if you're playing 40 player or 64 player mode. Basically, we made the decision there to just pull it out of the map rotation for a bit, uh, revert some of our changes, add some new map balance changes in there, and that map will be back out to you guys before you know it. If you want a more in-depth explanation for that whole process, you can actually head over to our Reddit, which is the Chivalry 2 Reddit. And we did a post there. It's also over in our Discord, which is discord.gg/chivalry2 if you're not a member there. Those are good places to go if you need some news on Chivalry 2. But we're going to be heading into our interviews today. A little bit later on in the second half of the stream, we'll have another special guest who is Jet, or you may know him as Epic the Jet. He is a community member of Chivalry 2. He's part of our partner program, and he's also part of a community tester program that we have for Chivalry 2, but we'll hear a little bit more about that later. We're going to dive right in with Ivan and actually give Ivan a little opportunity to talk about himself. So, how about we get started with kind of like your background in art and how you got started being a creative person? Was there certain inspirations in your life, or did you just realize you had a talent for art early on?
I always drew as a kid, and then I've been drawing for a long, long time. So art has been part of my life for a very long time. And then after high school is when I decided to get into game development as well as art. And then the perfect mesh between the two is a character artist or an environment artist. I actually started out as an environment artist at Torn Banner first, and then slowly weaseled my way into character art, doing weapons and helmets and stuff like that. So yeah.
Yeah, I think it's a great part of our company too. Is we really want to acknowledge the fact that people have multiple talents. So what we end up doing usually is someone will get hired for a position, and then we really encourage for whatever they're interested in, to just kind of like get more into it and experience what the other developers are doing. So it's kind of a cool aspect of the team that we have.
Would you say that you like character art more than environment art, or do they kind of have their own things, pros and cons?
I would say personally I veer more into character art,
Makes
but
sense, because
and
that's what you do now.
yeah.
So you mentioned as part of your role, you do armor, weapons, that kind of thing. Um, is there any types of inspirations for you personally for that? Uh, so say you get a weapon that you are tasked with. Is there certain inspirations that you go out and look for to get, is either real world or fantasy? What kind of inspirations do you use in your art, basically?
Definitely a lot of real world references that we use. A lot of the stuff we gather is a lot from like the Met and certain museums that have a lot of screenshots and stuff like that. It's very helpful, and a big library to pull a lot of references from too.
Yeah,
And
I've
we
actually
usually
been
try
on
to
there.
stick
Yeah, it's really interesting.
yeah.
Yeah. If you guys have any questions for Ivan while we're talking, definitely write them in the chat. I noticed that Kind Noob said, um, "What is your favorite theme for, I guess, overarching medieval theme?" Perhaps he's referring to. Uh, maybe a certain time period that you really enjoy.
I don't really know actually.
Just kind of like everything. That's fine.
I
Yeah.
think there's a good amount of variety everywhere to
Yeah.
pull from, as
Yeah.
long as it's kind of fits within the overall narrative theme of what we're going for.
Mm-hmm. That's actually kind of a little bit more of a complex question. Is um, the artwork of Chivalry 2 as a whole? Like, there's certain themes that we kind of follow. Um, is there any themes in general that you can share that you usually follow? One example I'm thinking of is how in Chivalry 2 we will have a certain silhouette that we stick to. So, Vanguards kind of always have like the long outfit, while Knights are usually kind of, you see a silhouette and you know right away basically what that kind of class will be from a distance. Is there any more kind of, I guess, rules of cosmetics that you think that are interesting?
Yeah, well, we have two factions. So with the Agathians, they're a little bit more like Southern Europe style, whereas the Masons are more Northern Europe. So they're a little bit more brutalist, whereas Agathians are a little bit more fancy, ornate, and stuff like that. So
Yeah, absolutely. That's how I like the fancy and ornate is how I would describe them as well.
Yeah, that's a good detail.
Is there a type of work that you do for Torn Banner that you, as a favorite of yours, like, do you prefer to work on weapons? Do you prefer to work on armor? Do you have a favorite class that you like to work for?
um, I definitely really like working on knights, a little bit more hard
Mhm.
surface. Weapons are really fun too. But I've been mostly making vanguards and knights, so I like those for
For
sure.
sure. Are there any examples of some of the work that you've done for the Knights and Vanguards that you want to mention?
Yeah, one of them would be the tournament knight we have, the Mason tournament knight, the spiky guy. That's one of my favorites. And then I also made the beast hunter on the Mason side. I think that's the name of it.
I
Yeah,
really love the Spiky Knight, as we call it. I think it's one of the more unique ones out there for sure.
going back to your own personal style, um, is there any type of work in your personal, I guess, work that you do on your personal self that you kind of uh, bring to the table when it comes to chivalry? Like, perhaps you know, you've done environment art, for example. So is there any like transferable skills from things that you've done on your personal time that you find have been useful for chivalry?
Yeah, during like personal art and stuff, I usually try to study a bit of anatomy, learn how to make hair in games and like hair cinematically as well, stuff like that. And just like cloth sims are very important for what we do. That's like something I learned mostly in my free time, and then that transitioned pretty well into making characters in the game.
Interesting. Yeah, I imagine cloth sims and hair in particular are quite difficult. I don't know if I could even wrap my head around how complex that is. It's probably a complexity that, players may overlook as well. So it's really interesting to hear about.
Yeah, I think it's important to recognize too, because with that complexity, it's not just a matter of making it look good. It's a matter of rigging it well and making it perform well, especially when you're under constraints of like the first generation consoles, for example, that we're using, and having it work with 64 people at a time is quite something.
Yeah.
I got one more kind of like a personal question for you. Um, I think overall, if people who are not necessarily interested in game development, they may not even know what a character artist does as a whole. Um, but once they discover it, they may find, hey, this is a career path that, I really enjoy art. I'd like to work on games. This is something that maybe I would be interested in. Is there any type of recommendations that you'd give to people, things to study that would help them kind of like develop their skills? Maybe even classes to take, schools to attend, any kind of education that'll help them get into a character art position in the future.
Yeah, I would say there's so many tutorials online right now that it's pretty easy to pick up any modeling package, and that's the first place you should start. Like either whether it's Blender or Maya or 3ds Max, pick one and then learn from a bunch of online tutorials at first. And then if you like it from there on, you can also take online courses that cost a little bit of money, or you can find a local college. There's a
I
lot of
believe
Yeah.
some free software as well. I think Blender might be free.
Yeah, Blender's free, so that's an easy one to pick up for sure.
Grantsworth in the chat's asking, what software programs do you use personally for character art for Tormentor?
Ooh. Personally, I use Maya, Autodesk Maya, and then for putting the colors on, which is texturing, we use Substance Painter, and then for detailing, we use ZBrush, which is for like sculpting and stuff.
Interesting, a
It's a
lot of
good
different ones.
good note. I think since we're touching on that a little bit, maybe we could talk a little bit about the process from start to finish of what that pipeline looks like in order to bring the character to life.
Sure.
Absolutely, yeah. I am gonna change over to another screen here. That way we can actually show in detail
Love
some
to.
of
I saw
this.
these a little bit earlier. Can't wait.
Yeah. So on screen right now, just so Ivan knows, because he won't be able to see it, I have the Agatha Gallo glass, the concept art and also the textured model for this one. So I gotta start from the beginning. Who is often the times the one that does the concept art?
We used to have our animator also, he like did 50-50 with animation and concept art, so that is made by him. So the concept would come in from him, and then from there on, we would have to block out the major shapes, whether it's simming some like light cloth on it or like sculpting it. And then after that, we would have to work on the high detail pass, which is like sculpting and more detailed cloth sims. And then from there on, we make something called a low poly, which is what eventually goes into the game, which is like uh, a lower polygonal object character.
Yeah.
And then
For
from
seeing them at distances, basically, is what they're for.
yeah, then after that, we would take it to texturing. So that, and then the final would be the image on the bottom right is all textured up and in engine.
Girl with a Shovel wants to know, do you ever get any inspiration from the community? Like perhaps the community shares some photographs or something that you see. Have you ever been inspired?
Yeah, for sure. I think a lot of the stuff we're making gets a little bit of inspiration from the community. There's a lot of back end references that we use that are so big. I'm pretty sure a bunch of them are from the community too.
Yeah, I think when Jen and I are going through stuff, we'll have a pass on stuff that comes from the community and just like slip it into our idea walls and stuff, being like, hey, this is kind of cool. Check this out.
So you'd actually get, basically this concept art on the top left, and then you'd be responsible for taking it all the way to the bottom right. And then we also have a final version of that as well, which is like a rendered version as well as an in-game version. So basically, as a character artist, you're in charge of all of that.
Yep, basically. Except after the character is done, where in the previous slide they're in sort of that A pose.
hmm
To get it completely finished, the animator would have to come in and rig it up, which is basically putting bones in it, which makes it able to move around. So that is something that gets hand off to the animators.
It was also mentioned before that we originally had this animator working 50-50 on concept art and animation. And we're happy to say that we actually have a full-time concept artist now in-house. He's doing both environment art concept art and character concept art, which is really exciting.
Yeah, he's been awesome.
Just reading through the chat as we're talking. There's been a couple people that has said that we need capes. I feel like capes are a hotly discussed topic, where it's like you're either pro cape or anti cape. I'm all for capes. I think capes in general, probably a little bit more expensive due to how they would move around. So that's something that we have to consider, guys. But we see your cape comments for sure. I'm gonna move to our next slide, which is actually the Druids. The Druids are a new addition for Aberfell, as well as these other armors that we're talking about. And this is definitely a different style than we're used to seeing so far in Chivalry 2. Was there any new challenges that working on the druids presented the team that you can think of?
Yeah, the druid was a bit of because he was a special NPC at the end of Aberfell. It meant that we could definitely play more with the proportions. So we were like trying to think, oh, maybe he'll look better if he was skinny, if he was tattooed, or if he was thicker or more naked or something like that. And then eventually we decided to go with someone that looked more like a wizard, I guess, not a druid, basically.
Yeah, makes
So
sense.
this is what we came onto, basically.
Yeah, so we have the concept art in the left here. We have a wireframe version and the textured model. So this is basically, step by step what our artist would be doing.
Yeah, this isn't even touching on the helmets either, which were a whole other fun aspect we got to play with for the druids.
Hmm.
I also have the finished druids for you here. In case you're not familiar, though, I would expect most people in chat have played Aberfell right now, or by now. Um, there's a lot of interesting cloth detail in this one that we normally don't get to see in some of the chainmail or the, knight armors, for example. A lot of different folds in the fabric that are really interesting. And of course, Moon Moon mentioned the helmets are very, very different than other helmets that we've seen from Chivalry 2 so far, which are really fun.
This is a question for chat. What if you recall what the helmets are? What is your favorite druid helmet, and why is it the goat?
I mean, the goat does have the antlers, so I feel like that one makes it the coolest.
It's pretty fantastic. Yeah, the shepherd staff's amazing too. I think I'm still working my way up to unlocking that one.
Uh, Someone in the chat says, "Can we be expecting new armor in the next update?" I pretty much every update, I think, since launch, we've added new customizations. The amount of customization kind of varies from update to update, but you can definitely expect some new armors in the future for sure. One of the things I'm curious about as we move on to the Mason clan armor um, is there a continuation from Chivalry 1 style that you guys kind of stick to? Um, or do you feel like Chivalry 2 has given you more opportunities to kind of venture out and basically expand the way that you're able to make armor? Or I guess what I'm trying to say is, do you feel like we've kept the overall Chivalry 1 style, or is Chivalry 2 kind of like its own expanded thing by now?
I think we've definitely kept to the most important design languages. Like the knight is mostly metal,
Mm-hmm.
shinier. Same with like you said earlier, like the vanguard is still like a long rope guy. But now because of how big Shift 2 is, we got to play with a lot of more themes like basically Aberfell is more Highlander themed, right? So
Mm-hmm.
definitely gives us a lot more playing room as well. I think we definitely expanded pretty well with regards to like the older design language that they had in Shiv 1.
Mm-hmm. That's one of the things that I think is both a positive and a challenge for Chivalry is that there are these or overarching themes that we try to keep in cohesion, essentially, wherein we don't want to just throw in all of these armors that kind of mismatch together. We like that the Masons look very different from the Agathians. We like that the classes look very different from each other because it really creates a visually distinct look that when you see it, you say that looks like Chivalry 2, basically within any screenshot. Um, and yeah, as I mentioned, that's kind of like a nice thing because it makes it very visually understandable for players that, if I see a certain class, I know right away that's what the class is. Uh, but it does create a challenge where you want to create all of these different types of themes, but also make them chivalry themed at the same time. Um, Let's
So
look
when
at
you're
the
working
chat as
on
well.
like these characters and these weapons and stuff, we often do a lot of effort for differentiating between tiers. And so what kind of
Mm.
consideration would you have for like a base tier versus an upgraded tier, for example?
Well, usually we try to make it so that the higher tiers have more gold or embellishing on them or etchings, whereas the lower tier is still looks good, but doesn't have as much fanciness to it. And it's been pretty fun thinking of that way, sort of like how your Pokemon evolves and stuff like that. It's like sort of thinking in that sense.
That's a great example. Yeah, I love these tiers too. Someone mentioned that they love the first tier, and I think even though that we consider tiers to be upgraded in some ways, often the very first tier of things is often really enjoyable to play as well, and I think it looks fantastic.
Yeah, and that's something that we carry through with the weapon tiers as well, where, you know, just because they're not the quote unquote fanciest, each tier has its own individual flair and style, and each of them is very fun and interesting to use to customize your overall look. We can actually see on screen kind of an example of what Ivan was mentioning, where in the bottom right-hand corner is kind of the most gold and most embellished version of the Mason Clan skin. And as you move across to the left, you get to the second and first tiers, which do look visually different, but also very cohesive as well.
What kind of challenges do you run into when going from like Maya, for example, to the in-game lighting and everything? Like, is there a bit of a back and forth on that?
Um, yeah, actually, when we texture, we use Substance Painter, and then it definitely does look a little bit different from Substance Painter to Unreal. So we definitely have to tweak it a little bit from program to program. Like our metals are a little bit shinier than in Substance, so that's something you have to judge with your own eye after getting everything imported in. Same with some colors are a bit more saturated while others aren't. But yeah.
Yeah, I'm not
Cool,
an
thanks.
expert by any means, but I do know that the shinier materials use a reflection capture to kind of change how they
Mhm.
look into different lighting. Um, is that something that you, as a character artist, are iterating on to make sure that it looks proper in all different types of lighting?
Well, we try to.
Yes.
Have
That's something I've come to appreciate a lot more. Sitting in character art meetings, and these are the things I never would have thought about unless I was sitting there and experiencing the kind of discussions that happen related to it.
uh, Skull wants to know any possibility of spikes on the shoulders for Mason. Uh, spikes on
That's a cool
shoulders. Yeah,
idea.
that's a pretty good idea.
That's a
I like
cool
that
idea.
idea. Reading to make sure we've got any other questions in chat. Girl with a Shovel asked about updating the customization to add more colors and open helmets and that kind of thing, which is something that I can touch on a little bit. Um, Due to the way that we kind of aesthetically want Chivalry to look, there's not a lot of open interpretation to changing colors because we want, Agatha and Mason to be visually distinct from each other. So, Mason would always be red, Agatha would always be blue. And we kind of stick to that, which is, it does limit customization a little bit, but helps overall with visual cohesion. In terms of open helmets, that's something that we've talked about, quite a few times internally. Um, the the difficult thing with like interchanging helmets is actually the way that the helmets interact with different types of armors. Um, uh, we want the helmets and the armors to look like they go together, so that's why we actually limit some of the ones that you can put together. Like if you've ever tried to use the jousting armors, you'll notice that you get limited on what helmets you can pair with it, just because we don't want it to clip horrendously through it and just look really bad. Uh, so with open helmets, I think that that's something that sounds like a possibility in the future, but just not something that we've put a lot of priority into so far.
Yeah, and touching on the UI element of kind of the restricting helmets thing, I think there's something that it's known that it's not always obvious that they're restricting because people find some elements disappear when you wear certain helmets and stuff. So that's something that we might be looking to address in the future.
Yeah, for sure. Making that a little bit more clear, I think, would definitely help. Uh, we have Will A asked, aesthetically, what is the end goal of the overall design and style of Chivalry 2? Ivan, what's your thoughts there?
Um, the end goal is to make a pretty good looking skin that is also pretty grounded, where we're not leaning towards like super fantasy style. It's like definitely a bit more grounded than say something like medieval that's like Elden Ring or Dark Souls. We try to keep it a little bit less like that. We want to keep it a bit more believable in a sense.
Yeah, I would say that's pretty accurate. Where, yeah, I think Chivalry 2 can be influenced by fantasy elements, but overall tries to remain somewhat realistic overall. Yeah. How about we've heard a lot about the kind of steps that you would go through to make a cosmetic. Um, how much time do you think a single skin takes to make from the moment you get the concept art to the moment that you would hand it off to be rigged, basically?
We've been going by a 6 to 8 week schedule, I think. So yeah, but that also includes all the tiers. So
Yeah,
Yeah,
3
multiple things
plus.
being worked on.
Yeah.
Yeah, and there's also like 5-day weeks. So there's a lot of, from a production standpoint, there's a lot of accounting that goes into that to figure out the timelines for that.
hmm we have a couple questions about horse customization, which we can't share too much about, but I think I could share that obviously we'd want to have customization, especially so they would look visually different between Mason and Agatha. Uh, so hopefully we can share a little bit more about that in the future as well.
Yeah, nothing more to share on that point. In terms of other suggestions that kind of come in as well, like if people are suggesting certain styles that they like that they've seen maybe from Shiv 1 or from other suggestions, we have been taking those in and just letting the team know and seeing if it fits on any of our timeline schedules or anything and which ones we might be interested in doing. So we're always interested in getting community input on these things.
Yeah, as Mumu mentioned, I know anytime we see like a cool reference image on Reddit or Discord, for example, I tend to save them and share them. We have a channel that's basically devoted for that in our work Slack, like an idea wall where we just post cool stuff. Um, so a lot of the time we'll just post some cool stuff in there, and if it sticks, then it gets kind of shuffled into the inspiration for concept artists and etc. Um, Speaking of art in general, how large would you say our art team on Chivalry 2 is? And perhaps what other art related roles we have at the studio?
so right now we have 4 character artists. Uh, Mark, how many environment artists do we have? Like close to 10?
We are forming a small army of environment artists.
They're
No, we
growing.
have 2 environment artists right now, and they've been pretty busy. So that's all I'll say.
I'll give you guys a couple more minutes to leave any remaining questions that you have specifically for Ivan. Kind Noob says, "Very cool, lovely art." Thank you, Kind Noob. That was very kind of you.
Since we have been talking about character artists, environment artists, I'm just kind of going through our open positions right now in case people are looking to get a new vocation. So I believe, and as far as this has been updated, I'm not sure, but let's see. We have senior environment artist, lead environment artist, going down the list, foliage artist, senior animator, technical animator, senior character artist, senior concept artist. So there's quite a few going on right now. If you guys are in that field and looking to try things out.
Yeah, and we kind of touched on at the beginning of the stream, what kind of opportunities are out there for people who are interested in art and interested in games. I think art is probably one of the more unknown areas of game development. When you think of people who work in game design, you probably think programmers. Like that's kind of like a default in people's minds. But there's actually quite a lot of different roles that you can choose between if you have an interest in working with games outside of programming or that kind of thing. So it's definitely worth looking into, especially if you've got a creative streak. There's a lot of cool opportunities for you out there. This game is being made all the time, so if that's something that interests you, definitely, as Ivan mentioned, there's lots of resources online that are free. Basically, lots of YouTube tutorials, even free classes that you can find, and if that's something that you want to pursue, obviously, there's more structured learning that you can do as well. That's actually one of the things that I have enjoyed about working at Torn Banner is Torn Banner actually gives us opportunities to kind of spend time and learn some of the skills that we think would help benefit Torn Banner. So if you wanted to learn or take a class on how to do a certain style of art that you didn't know, or a certain skill within art that you didn't know how to know, we could actually spend some time, learn it, implement it into the game, that kind of thing. So yeah, we're definitely interested in forwarding people's growth within the company, which is nice.
I got a great question here with, will Chivalry employees be forced to watch The Northman? No, but we all have to watch Monty Python, so there's
I
your
think
requirement.
Monty Python's definitely a forced watch, I feel.
I don't imagine, and this is just me saying that, I don't imagine that we will be seeing magic in the game. If it comes in any form, it'll probably be like Easter eggy type things, but yeah.
I know you guys, I want dragons too, but
Yeah, dragons have my vote.
we just have some dragons flying around in the air. That's fine.
What do you think this tattoo is?
We have lots of suggestions from you guys. Obviously, we see the suggestions. Can't really go through one by one. Obviously, one for more colors and patterns. Heraldry is something that we add quite frequently. And we try to make each of the customization options look unique. So if you have suggestions there, definitely leave them, and we'll try to pass those along.
I see some questions about when's the next update, and we can't talk about it yet, but we're getting closer, so we should
Closer
have some
every
stuff
day.
there in the future for sure.
I think we're gonna let Ivan head off. We've grilled him with all of these personal questions. We want to say thank you again, Ivan, for joining us and talking to us about character art and showing us a little bit behind the scenes. We appreciate your time.
No, we appreciate
Thanks
it.
for having me. Thanks for having me.
I am gonna switch this focus over like this.
Sounds good.
And we
No,
actually
Ivan gets all the real estate.
you do.
I'm watching this too.
So we're actually going to move over to our second special guest. As I mentioned at the beginning of the stream, we have Epic the Jet, aka Jet, with us, and he is going to be joining us to talk a little bit about being part of our partner program, being part of the community tester program, and just hang out, chat, all that kind of stuff. So welcome, Jet.
Hey folks, I'm glad to be here. How you guys doing?
Long time no see.
Yeah, right.
Indeed.
So on screen now, I actually have a video of yours that'll be playing alongside us. That is from a stream of yours. So I actually have your Twitch up on the screen. That is twitch.tv/epic TEH jet. That's correct.
You know, it's fantastic. I didn't even realize that you had the overlay going on. That's awesome. Watch the skills in action.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've always got it up.
See, if that was me, I'd just be rapidly. You'd see the left mouse button being rapidly clicked constantly.
Yeah, we
Yeah, I thought
just
it would be
were
oh, sorry.
left click spammers here.
Yeah, I thought that overlay would be just something nice to look at when I'm like looking back at clips or whatnot, just to see like how quick my inputs are. I don't know. That stuff is interesting to me.
Yeah, I actually think it's quite interesting for your watchers, viewers as well, who kind of get a feel for what exactly you're doing when they're watching on stream. It's pretty neat.
How long have you been part of the Chivalry community, Jet?
So I started back on Chivalry 1 on Xbox 360 actually. pretty much right when you guys had the port out for it. Um, Loved that game to death. So, oh man, sorry, it's being on stream makes me nervous. So,
It's okay.
so back then, what kind of drew me in was I actually had an interest in medieval game or medieval like games, medieval like the whole like genre itself. I'm a huge Berserk fan, so that kind of worked for me. I got into Berserk like at the same time as I got into Shiv 1, so uh yeah, there's that. It was a really different game from what was on the market at the time, and I was kind of looking for something that wasn't just like another shooter. That's what I like about slashers. They're a lot more personal, I
Hmm.
feel. Like with shooters, it's just kind of like you run down a corridor and either shoot this guy or you get shot. In Shiv 1 and Shiv 2, um it's more like you run up to this guy and you can hit him with a slash, an overhead special, or he could attack you. There's a really cool like back and forth.
You make a really good point that I hadn't really considered, but it's totally true. Where it's in a shooter, you're often just like you're seeing them very quickly, you're shooting them, and then they're respawning, or you're respawning. If in my case, but if you have chivalry too, where you're fighting them, there's this kind of extended staring them in the eye as you're doing it, and it becomes a lot more um, involved and more intimate in a way, which you don't really get too many other places.
Yeah. So I ended up playing Shiv 1 for about 2 years, I want to say. It was really enjoyable on console. I went from 360 to I ended up upgrading to an Xbox One, and I got the Xbox One version like almost immediately. Had even more fun with that. And then I just kind of went quiet for the next few years. Really, I just moved on to other games. But oh man, I remember it like it was yesterday, seeing Shiv 2 get announced at the PC Games show at E3. What was it, like 2019?
Yeah.
Um, yeah. So I as soon as I saw it, I think like right after that showcase was over, I went and applied for the alpha like immediately. It took a while, but I eventually got in. I want to say in like November of 2020. I got into one of your like 1 day tech tests, and I just about immediately fell in love with the game.
Oh.
Everything just felt right to me.
You and me both. I'm watching your stream right now, and I'm finding it really interesting. You know how everyone, even within the company, will be watching one person playing for a little bit and another person playing for a bit, and even within just individual people, even though the controls are the same, and you have the depth there that people can have individual play styles. So when you are playing for yourself, is there um, any specific play style you like to orient in terms of like how you strategize going towards encounters or anything?
Uh, oh man, that's a really hard question to answer.
I know, making you think.
So I kind of go on instinct. It's hard for me to answer that question because I don't really think when I play. It just things just kind of happen and I react.
It comes naturally.
Yeah, it just kind of comes naturally, as Jen put it. Um, yeah, for me, it's I guess if I had to put it into words, it's all about mix-ups, constantly keeping pressure on with footwork and attacks that do high stam damage, stuff like that.
You mentioned you started out on console. Um, did you ever think about going back to console for Chivalry 2, or you just picked it up on PC and have stayed there?
I just picked it up on PC and it just felt right, so I decided to stay.
Yep, that sounds about right. Uh, I do want to interrupt this interview just for one question. It says, "Why doesn't have console have chase mechanic?" I do want to ex Abyss gamer. I do want to address that question. That is something that we're looking into. It's a bug, so you guys should have chase mechanic, and it's something that we're looking at fixing. Just wanted to address that one.
Yep, good one.
Um, in terms of Jet's gameplay, um, oftentimes I like to ask kind of more experienced players what kind of advice they would give to somebody who's looking to improve at Chivalry 2. Is there any like kind of quick tips and tricks that you could have that come to mind?
So my bit like I would say my most like basic tip I can give to a new player is don't be afraid to just hold block. Um, it's like perfectly okay if you're not like a counter god or anything like that. Sometimes it's just about like especially in team objective, your positioning is very important, and
Mm-hmm.
using like held block and dodge to just kind of get out of bad situations can can make you go from like maybe lasting a couple minutes alive to lasting a few objectives alive, I would say.
Yeah, don't be like me and run into the biggest group of enemies you can find.
Oh yeah, I still do that too.
Unless you're Jet.
But yeah, yeah, blocking. Don't be afraid to block. Learn counters as soon as you possibly can. Feinting is very important, and I would say that dodging is also very important. Always remember that you can dodge when landing a hit or directly after landing a hit, and you can dodge right after getting hit yourself. Those are very important to kind of controlling the fight.
I love that 5 seconds left objective capture. So satisfying when that happens.
Oh, for sure, for sure.
The
Speaking of
dodging.
objectives,
Oh, sorry, Mark. Go ahead.
we're all a team here. What would you say your favorite map is?
My favorite map by far is Rudhelm. That is peak Shiv 2 map design.
And why do you think that is? I want to hear your take on it as a community member.
Sure. So I love the way the map starts off, just like from the intro cinematic to how it ends up playing out. Pushing two towers, I like that a lot more than just pushing like one kind of siege tower. There's kind of like a really cool dynamic there with how you can kind of split your team and like push. So it's like the enemy team or the defenders can't really just reliably go to one point, kill everyone, and like stall the gameplay that way. I think it's really neat that you've got the siege towers on left and right side, and then you've got kind of like the empty space in the middle for either kind of rotations or maybe have some like archer play there. I haven't really seen that. I don't know. I feel like it could like be kind of effective. It's just kind of something I thought up.
Yeah, without going too much in level design, I know it's one amazing thing about Rudhelm is all of the objectives feel rarely epic and all different. Epic as a way of saying it. But yeah, the thing about Redhelm too is like you have these objectives and everyone's kind of playing them, and you would think in a sword slasher that that every fight feels the same. You're just like, oh, I'm just going to swing my sword at somebody, but the coherence of all these objectives in combination with that play, sorry guys, is really unique for all these different play styles and team objectives.
I'm actually gonna bring up one of our first questions, or not questions, but topics I want to chat to Jed about, which is being part of the partner program. So I actually saw a question in chat. Jokingly, I think, are you looking to sponsor other Twitch streamers? So the partner program is something that we're, putting a little push behind currently over the next few months. Really interested in supporting people who make Chivalry 2 content. So if you're somebody who likes to make YouTube videos or stream Chivalry 2 on Twitch, and you're not part of the partner program already, you can actually sign up on our Discord. And as I mentioned, Jet is a part of that program, and that's how he is interviewing with us today, because I kind of put out the feelers and said, hey, is there anybody in the chat who would like to talk to us about Chivalry 2 on stream? So if that's something that you think that you might be interested in, definitely reach out over on the Discord partner channel, and you can basically submit your YouTube channel or your Twitch, and we'll look through your application and kind of, there is some criteria there, so make sure you read to see if you fit that criteria. But yes, so you stream on Twitch pretty regularly. I think you post your VODs over on YouTube as well.
Yep.
How long have you been streaming on Twitch?
So I've been streaming for almost a year now. I think I've been going about 9 or 10 months at this point. Let me think. I started in like June of last year, late June of last year. Um, Pretty much what got me into streaming. I just seen a lot of my other friends that I met in the Shiv 2 community streaming their gameplay, and they wanted to see me see my gameplay as well. So I thought, why not give it a try? Could be fun. And I ended up kind of just falling in love with it.
Awesome. Was it something that you were nervous to start at the beginning, or is it kind of just something that you enjoyed straight away?
Oh, without a doubt, I was nervous about streaming, but eventually you just kind of get used to it. You learn to enjoy your chat's company, and I mean, bad games happen. Can't always worry about gameplay. Sometimes it's just
hmm
about kind of creating a relaxing environment for the people that are watching.
Was adding the on-screen mouse and keyboard your idea, or is that a suggestion from one of your viewers?
In my time watching some of the other Shiv 2 streamers, there was one I saw that. Oh yeah, it was Striped Sweater. I saw him with like that exact layout or overlay, and I thought it would be a cool thing to have, kind of to differentiate myself from other streamers, because he was really the only one I saw that had it. And I thought that'd be kind of cool to just kind of have. I don't know.
Nice. I can see you have a lot of fans in the chat that are saying, "Is Jet able to see this?" And then,
I am. I'm looking at the chat. Yeah. Yeah, I see all
as
you guys. Oh, sorry.
that's
Yeah,
okay.
I see you guys in chat. Really appreciate you guys coming through to support me here.
In addition to being part of the partner program, you're also one of our community testers. Um, and the community tester program is basically uh, a program where we kind of invite people and then use a test group of people to kind of play test alongside developers during our weekly play tests, just to help fill out the group and also get some direct community communication that's a little bit more um, direct in a way. So we actually have a program leader, which is Connect, if you've seen him in the Discord, and he kind of heads that community tester program. And as a member of that, you'll kind of or Jet has access to play tests and give feedback directly to devs on a more personal basis. So I was curious, how did you get into the CT program?
So, man, I remember this like it was yesterday. So, it was during one of the alphas that you guys had in February of 2021. I was just kind of playing with some people in one of the Shiv 2 Discord's voice channels, and Moon ended up popping in just to like hang out and chill. And I think we ended up helping him find a way to get behind the throne on Rudhelm, which was an exploit.
True.
So,
I remember it like it was yesterday.
yep. So we helped him do that. I ended up sending him a video of me getting behind it, and the very next day, I woke up to a message saying, "Would you like to join the community testers program?" It was a honestly dream come true.
Yeah, the community tester program was Jen and Mai's baby when it was first started. So we really have an appreciation for it. And back then, we were looking at people who had. I don't think it was just the Red Helm Throne. I think we'd seen you a few times at that point, and gave all the right vibes and stuff. So we ended up sending an invite, and it's worked out really well, I would say.
I'd
I
say that
definitely
too.
think so. Yeah, we kind of keep our eyes open, and other members of the program kind of keep their eyes open for people who continually, report bugs in the Discord. Don't necessarily have any ulterior motive. They just want to be helpful. So we like to give those people an opportunity to be helpful on a more personal basis. So Jet definitely fits that criteria. He's super helpful, basically with anything and everything, which we really appreciate. So we're always happy to have you here with us.
Just to expand a little on what the program's become as well is, so originally it was Jen and I kind of heading that up and passing along the feedback and stuff to the team and bugs and everything. And with all our other responsibilities, it got really busy for us. And we were really, really fortunate because Connect, who is the live coordinator now, was actually also a member of the community testers Discord. So we hired him based specifically on his work in that program, which was awesome.
Yeah, I love that kind of thing where we can kind of hire within the community and give them opportunities to really shine. Uh, So the program overall is something that, obviously I'm very proud of, Moon's very proud of as well. I'm sure Connect would say the same. And it's been something that I think has helped the game quite significantly, that we are able to kind of play test things and get good community feedback before it goes out. Even before it goes out, we've tried like early access to some builds to the public, for example. So we're able to get feedback even before that happens. So ideally, it is a gate to kind of gauge changes before they even get to the public, which is nice.
Yeah, one advantage that I found as well that has been fantastic is usually with community reports, it can be kind of varied with how much information we get from them.
Yes.
So we'll get a community report of saying something's not working, and then our QA will look at it and say this is reproing, this isn't reproing. And sometimes we leverage having some of the community testers who are playing the game anyways, just to say, hey, look out for this bug. And then we kind of give them a template to kind of go off of, and we can usually fix bugs that way a little bit quicker, which is great.
Yeah. Looking at my list here, what is your impression, Jet, been of the Chivalry community basically since you joined as a member of the community tester program? What's your overall impression of the community been?
So I would say I've met some absolutely fantastic people. Made a lot of friends in my time. I'm looking at the gameplay. I'm sorry. Um, I've made some absolutely wonderful friends that I will enjoy just more than Shiv 2 with for years to come, honestly. The rest of the community, I've met some really awesome people there too. Um, very very passionate fan base. Very happy to have met some of them. One thing I really like is going into team objective servers and kind of seeing some of the like same big names. Really like just recognizable people. It's something I liked in Shiv 1 as well. Um, my friend Willet and I actually during our days in Shiv 1 would call like people with more recognizable customization that played really well, kind of like boss characters. And I get very similar vibes in this game.
Yeah, someone actually mentioned, we were talking about combat styles earlier, that oftentimes you can recognize people by their combat styles, just because the way that they play is very memorable. In addition to their boss level cosmetics.
Yeah, that definitely plays a part in it. Play styles are a huge thing. Makes the game even more fun for me.
Awesome. I kind of have like some general questions for you as well, just like some open-ended. What are your thoughts on? Which is, no pressure to have any good answer or anything.
Of course.
Maybe you have an idea already of what would be a weapon that you personally would like to see added.
I would personally love to see a flail, either one-handed, two-handed, or both.
Oh
Would be
no,
really
Team
cool to see in this
Flail.
game.
We went right from flails to double flails.
I think Chad agrees with this
Chat
flail.
loves that. Chat loves that.
Oh boy.
It's been noted.
Flails are definitely one of the more complex weapons, so we're definitely not ignoring Team Flail. As you can imagine, the physics involved with a flail are definitely a lot different than physics for current weapons, but a flail
Oh
would
yeah, of
definitely be
course.
fun.
Yeah, there's some ongoing discussions with it. I think the physics is a big part of it. I think the other part is one of the main cores of Chivalry 2 is making things more readable. And
That's true.
in Shiv 1, I think it was more of a crapshoot for, for what the flail would look like when you're fighting it in combat. And I think one of the design challenges is to make it readable if we were to do that. So all these kind of things that we have in the back of our minds as we take in feedback and everything. So it's very interesting.
Right.
So you're a big fan of Redhelm, as you mentioned. Is there a type of map that you'd really like to see in Chivalry 2? Like a certain location, for example?
Yeah, I would say my ideal Shiv 2 map, right? The ideal TO map would be kind of like similar to Rudhelm, where you're sieging kind of like citadel or fortress, um, where like the first couple stages might take place outside, and then the rest of it takes place inside, like completely indoors. I think that'd be really cool.
Good idea.
Interesting. What about you, chat? You got any ideas for maps that you'd really like to see? Let us know, and we'll read some out if we get some good ones.
I'm not sure if you recall, was there any particular Shiv 1 map that you remember that you really liked?
Oh, Citadel, by far the kind of
Good.
like lava mountain or like volcano like fort. That was one of my favorite maps from Shiv 1. I hope it's brought back in some form in Shiv 2.
Weaponized Funk says, "Hear me out, Volcano Fortress."
Exactly.
I like the idea of the ship fighting. Like you have to fight in the water with multiple boats, and like you're fighting on the boats and like jumping between them and stuff. Kind of like an expanded version of the Galencourt boat fight. That sounds fun. I also like the idea of a snow map. I want to go ice
Yeah.
skating so bad.
There's
Yeah,
so
snow
many
map would be
cool
cool.
environments that we could work with.
Yeah.
There's a question in chat, or a comment rather. Lewis is cool says, "I really want a lance," and you will be happy to know that the lance is already in game in some capacity. You can find that on Fallmire in this second last stage. As you're going in, they're fun to use. You don't spawn as a main weapon, but it's available.
There's a lot of good suggestions here for maps idea. What about, this is a very open-ended question for you. Because when I say the word feature, it can mean pretty much anything, but what feature would you like to see added to Chivalry 2? Basically, any type of feature that you want, basically.
Okay. Oh boy. So
Don't say fishing.
I'm not gonna say fishing, don't worry. I would say a feature I'd like to see is region select actually. So pretty much I like to play with people from pretty much all over the US, and
Mhm.
kind of the best way to play with them is on central servers. Because I'm US East, and so I don't always get central servers all the time. I
Mhm.
think it would help make that whole process easier, because most of the time what we do is we just have someone from central host a party or something.
Yeah.
Sometimes it can be harder if we don't have someone in central. It takes a few tries to get central servers.
Yeah, for
But
sure.
yeah, that'd be something I'd like to see.
I think that's fair. We've talked a little bit about well, let's be noted down. Number one, number two, we have some changes coming. That's on our roadmap regarding crossplay and things. So there's some work being done there, and so we're going to see how things play out and keep an eye on the community sentiment towards all those things too. So that's important to us to be keep on our radar and be aware of.
Of course.
If you guys have any questions for Jet, questions about being part of the partner program, any stuff like that, definitely write in the chat. We have a few minutes left that I want to leave you guys opportunity to say anything that you'd like to say. Jet, I'll give you the floor if there's anything that you'd like to say as well. Go ahead.
Okay. I'd just like to say that my time with a community, I kind of want to jump back into the community testers program for a minute.
Yeah,
So
go ahead.
my time with the community testing program has been absolutely amazing for me. It's been life changing. Even I've
Aw.
met
That's really good
some,
news.
yeah, I've met some of my like best friends in that program. It's been really cool to kind of see how things work in the background, because one big thing for me recently has been understanding what it's like developing a game from the game dev's perspective. I think it's important to understand just how hard it can be to fix certain bugs, get certain features out. Making content for the game, I know, is a very taxing process. Um, but yeah, it's really cool to see how everything kind of comes together. Guys, trust me, there's some good stuff in the works. I can't talk about it, but just
Cut him
stick with the
off. Cut
game.
him
I
off.
promise. There's a very good reason I have stuck with this game as long as I have.
I think that's
Believe me.
really, yeah, the sentiment overall is that Chivalry 2 is, it's going to be getting bigger and better all the time. There's often times little lows between each patch, but that's because we're putting, our heart, soul, sweat, blood, and tears, sweat, blood, and tears. There we go. Into each update. So obviously we're excited to release those in the future. And
I think that's a good note. It's whenever there's silence, it's never because we're not working on things. I think it's because we're working on things, and which means that there's ultimately a payoff, which is fantastic.
yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, you guys, your feedback is being listened to. Trust me on that.
Speaking of a feedback item that's close to your heart, the Great Sword Knight. How do you feel about that coming to fruition?
I'm still kind of in shock even now that it ended up becoming a thing. Makes me
Yeah,
really
that's
happy that we were able to push for that and just see it come into the game. Really means a lot to us.
Aw. Great Sword Knight. That crew, I remember that day still on Discord. They were just going
I mean, it's
nuts.
getting called out in chat now. Yeah.
Yeah.
What's been your longest kill streak, Chad? Do you know?
I think it's 53 kills.
Jeez.
Jeez. I was playing on the weekend, and I even posted in our company chat. I was like, "Look," and it was just 19 kills. And then I look at some of the community members. I'm like, maybe one day, maybe one day.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of people on our dev team that are good, but there's definitely a lot of community members such as yourself that are better than us.
You guys are pretty solid.
Pretty
Well, thank
scary.
you, thank you. Yeah, you've played against us, so you know. We are at time, so I'm going to wrap it up here. I want to say a special thanks to everybody in chat who came out to watch the stream today. We are going on a bi-weekly schedule for the foreseeable future, so we'll be back here same time, same day, Thursdays 2 p.m. Every 2 weeks for the foreseeable future. So if you want to come hang out with us again in the future, definitely do that in 2 weeks from now. I want to thank Ivan. I want to thank Moon Moon. I want to thank Jet for being here as well. In addition to everybody in the chat, we appreciate your time so much, and thanks for being so supportive of Chivalry 2.
Yep, thank you for having me. One last thing before we go. Just to let you guys in chat know, if you guys want to see some action, I will be streaming about 10 minutes after this stream is over.
Damn!
So,
Oh,
There you go.
I'm glad you told me. I'll do a little host thing if I can figure out how to do that from here. But I'll do it.
Okay. Appreciate it.
We'll see you guys in 2 weeks. Thanks so much.
Bye, guys. See ya. Thanks for
Bye.
joining.